Hi there, legal writers. Welcome to the Legal Grammar Redux video series with me, Jill Barton from the University of Miami School of Law. In this video series, I am covering 12 grammar topics, which are covered in more depth in chapters 19 through 21 in the handbook for the new legal writer. Those topics are listed here. They include 8 grammar basics and 4 more advanced grammar principles. So in this video, we are talking about grammar basic number 6, pronouns. And in relation to pronouns, we will talk about 5 rules. The first is that we want to make sure that pronouns match their antecedents. Antecedents is just a fancy word for what the pronoun is referring to. And so we want to make sure that singular pronouns match up with singular nouns, plural pronouns match up with plural nouns. This becomes tricky in legal writing because we have a lot of collective nouns that we're referring to: a court, a jury, a company. All of these collective nouns would have the singular pronoun if you were referring back to them with a pronoun. Here we have an example from a Supreme Court opinion where we are referring to the CDC, and that is the Centers for Disease Control, and it is a collective noun, so we refer back to it with the word it. The second rule is that that's IT apostrophe S, is always a contraction and not a possessive. So this is an easy rule to always get right as a legal writer because we use very few contractions in legal writing, and that word IT apostrophe S is a contraction of the words it and is. So if you want to always get this question right, just never write the word IT apostrophe S. If you want to get that meaning across, you can write it is. But the possessive is ITS with no apostrophe. Of course, while the justices do not write a lot of contractions, Justice Gorsuch certainly does. And here is an example within the same paragraph where he has both versions of this word it's. The first sentence here has the words its predecessors, referring back to the argument. This is the possessive of the arguments, talking about the argument's predecessors. In the next part of the sentence, he says, and it's impossible to transport goods. And here he is saying, and it is impossible. So that apostrophe is only in the word ITS when it is a contraction of it and is. Our third pronoun rule is that pronouns have to refer to an existing antecedent. That means that word that it's referring to actually has to be in the sentence, and it has to be clear to the reader what you are referring to. So let's take a look at this sentence. Judges become annoyed with attorneys who make pronoun errors. This is true, professors as well. So carefully proofread your document to eliminate them. What are we eliminating? Obviously, we're eliminating the pronoun errors, but we could also read this to be reading that we are eliminating the attorneys. So we want to be very clear. If there's any chance of confusion over what your pronoun might be referring to, just add the word in. So we're referring to errors, and so we can just add that in instead of using the pronoun. Another time that this becomes an issue is when we just use the word this, an undefined pronoun, to refer to something else we maybe wrote in a document. This is a little pet peeve of mine. When we say this means something, your reader doesn't necessarily know what you're talking about. You as the writer might know, but try to make it explicit. So for example, this evidence of ineffective assistance of counsel means. So follow that undefined pronoun word this with exactly what you are referring back to. That will make your point better, and it will make you show your work even better, which is always a great thing to do in legal writing. Pronoun rule number 4 is how to figure out whether we should be using who or whom. And I have a trick for you here. So let's take a look at the sentence. The judge sealed the records relating to the juvenile who or whom was identified only as TM in publicly released documents, of course, referring to a juvenile only by his or her initials. So who is always used to refer to subjects. Whom is used to refer to objects. Now, these words are very similar to other pronouns, he and him. And when you were writing a sentence or when you were speaking, I bet you never confuse using he and him. So for my trick, I would suggest trying to sub the word who or whom for the word he or him in a sentence, and you will automatically figure out what it is you're trying to say. Let's take a look here. The judge sealed the records relating to the juvenile who was identified only as TM. If we try to change that to be he or him, it's so clear in our mind that it should be he, because this is just a rule we know automatically. For some reason, who or whom just gets a little confusing. Let's take a look at another example. The letter had no name or return address, so our client does not know who or whom it is from. So using this rule where we take the words who or whom, and regardless of what who or whom is referring to, whether it's an it, a he, or a she, or a they, we are just going to substitute the words he and him in so that we can hear what sounds best. And this is just because he and him sound so close to who and whom. So here we can tell that we would write the letter had no name or return address, so our client does not know it is from him. We can tell now, because we have to rework the sentence, that we have an object that we're referring to. In that sense, we now know that we would use the word whom. So I hope this little trick helps you figure out whether you should use who or whom. Just in your mind, substitute the word he or him, and you will get this right every time. The final rule for pronouns is that we want to choose and use inclusive personal pronouns. So when we use pronouns, we can make harmful assumptions about a person's gender. We want to make sure that we are showing respect for the individuals that we are writing about. We want to make sure that we're making our writing inclusive and that we're creating an inclusive environment with our pronouns. So for more information on this, you can see Pronouns Matter. That's just at pronouns.org with a lot of great information. I also just want to end by reminding you that everyone can be a great legal writer. You are taking the right steps to get there just by watching this video, and I hope to see you next time.